Senate Bill 205. This is Senator Hedelman's alcoholic beverages bill, sale or delivery for off-premises consumption. This is the restaurant bill. Unsurprisingly, the House amended it to go back to their version, which does not include the provisions requiring counties to pass a local law or ordinance opting into the bill, and it does not include the reporting requirement. So it's if you want to concur, that would, it would be to reject. It would reject those Senate provisions, and if you not concur, it goes to conference.
Okay. Any objection? Okay. Senator Carrozza, you want to object?
If I just would want to concur with the House, so I understand that we are not concurring, but I just, if there's a
10-1, if we're keeping track, I don't know if we record concurrence or something.
Those now.
No, these are concurrences.
No.
Right. Okay. We will go to conference.
All right. The next one is Senate Bill 821. This is alcoholic beverages, manufacturers' licenses, and off-site permits. Senator Hester and Senator Gallion's bill. The House amended it to, make the whole thing sunset on December 31st, 2022. If you recall, the Senate has already passed the House bill with that in that posture, so the motion should be to concur.
Okay, we concur.
Next one is, so these are recede or not recede. So these are Senate bills that have been, these are House bills that the Senate.
April,
yes.
Why don't you explain the difference?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the concur, not concur are the Senate bills where we're being asked to sign off on amendments that the House has done. Recede, not recede are House bills that the Senate has amended, and the House is basically asking us to undo what we've done. So the first one is House Bill 12. This is the bill that authorizes, it's the alcoholic beverages bill again. So we want to not recede if we want to keep them moving together. Next one is House Bill 517. This is the bill that's the cross-file of Senate Bill 319, which is Senator Hester's bill, Clean Energy Loan Program Remediation and Resiliency. The Senate amended it to add in the grid resiliency projects. The House has asked us to recede and to take those out again. Okay. And then the last one that I have is House Bill 293, Natural Resources Organized Killing Contest Restriction. This is the one, the Senate amended it to increase the penalty for killing a coyote, fox, or raccoon in violation of the bill.
Yeah.
Senator, any opinion? That was your amendment.
Yeah, I like 100. I think have a little sting to it.
Okay. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Young came over to me last night and said that with Senator Simon-Ayer that 100 is better, but I think at this point it might be getting something or getting nothing.
Discussion. Senator Washington.
I mean, possibly in having a conversation we get to 50, but again, I feel 25 is nothing. I mean, there's no, so.
It's the price of doing business.
Yeah, basically, it would be worth it. So, I mean, you know, I would like not to recede on this. This isn't usually my big issues, but this particular one, I think, is worth fighting. Right.
There are not a lot of coyotes
No.
in mid-Baltimore?
No, not with 4 legs.
Confirming it's 25 or 100. There's no, let's do 50 as a compromise. That would be done in conference. Yeah, just checking. Thanks.
The motion was to not recede. Okay, I think whoever the conferees are, well, that's fine. Okay. Next.
Here. So I have Senate Bill 683. The motion is to concur or not concur. This is the Senate version of the permanent absentee ballot bill that just passed second reader in the Senate, and it is the amendments conform it to the bill as passed by EHE in this committee and just passed second reader in the Senate. What?
They adopted our amendments, so it's concur.
Yes, their amendments make it identical to House Bill 1048 as amended by this committee and passed second reader in the Senate.
We'll concur.
We have a recede or not recede for House Bill 72. This is County Boards of Education, Student Transportation, Vehicles, and Report. If you recall, this was to allow local boards of education to transport certain classes of students in vehicles other than school buses. So the House, this committee amended the House bill back to the Senate bill, which had a 3-year sunset and reporting on data for 3 years. And they had a section that would to define contracting agency to include entities that provide transportation to school using vehicles other than type 1 or type 2 vehicles, which essentially puts them for extended background checks, similar to the Wilson bill that we passed a few years ago. So I watched their subcommittee yesterday about this bill, and my understanding of the House's position is that 3 years is not enough time to get the data to make a good report. That is why they want 5 years, but this committee has said they wanted 3 years with it.
So there are 2 changes.
Correct. There's 2 changes from the House.
Committee? Senator Carrozza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is really important. We've been working on this going back to 2 or 3 years ago in Wycomico County. And so, and it's at this point, so, you know, if we could proceed to the House on this, it would be helpful in order to get this done.
Further discussion?
Is it a concurrence, or what is it, a receipt or concurrence?
The motion is a recede or not to recede. So
You would be
receding.
encouraging a recede.
A motion to recede to the House? Okay, I would make the
Senator
motion to
Simon Ayer?
recede to the House.
I understood the 3 to 5. What was the other provision?
Put it under another category, so they would have to go undergo a background check.
So the contractors who are driving the non-school buses would be subject to these extended background checks similar to other school employees. Make sure they haven't, in a previous job, left the job because they had sexual abuse allegations or things like that. So it's just an extended background check.
And have we reached out to the sponsor, to any? I'm trying to stall because he's giving me his answer, right? Can we come back after one? Just do one concur and then come back to this one?
Sure.
Okay.
And I have one last one, and this is Senate Bill 793. It's an alcoholic beverages bill, Frederick County alcoholic beverages consumption permits. What this bill does would establish a beer and wine consumption permit and a beer and wine and liquor consumption permit in Frederick County. The House made small amendments to the bill. It, for an individual may not consume, it changed the total amount of liquor that may be mixed with other non-alcoholic beverages. In the Senate bill, as drafted, it said 0.5. I'm talking to their counsel, and she says that this was incorrect as drafted, so it should be 1.5. The House also changed the amount of the permit fee from $200 to $400. So this would be to concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 793 or not concur.
Any objection with the motion to concur? Okay, so be it. Done. Is that it for you for now? We'll come back to that other bill. Foxworth?
Okay, so I just have one motion to concur. So this is with Senate Bill 762. It's not a cross-file. This is Maryland Electricians Act. So Economic Matters dealt with this bill and on third reader adopted several amendments. So the bill in general requires statewide licensure of electricians by July 1st, 2021. And it allows those local jurisdictions to register instead of licensed electricians. So when we dealt with the Senate bill, we adopted a licensure exemption for solar installers during the time of connecting kind of the wires. In the House, they removed that solar installation exemption. So at that period of time, they will have to be supervised by a licensed electrician. There was a work group that was added to study limited energy services in the event legislation is not passed by a particular date. Instead of requiring the Department of Labor to adopt regulations for these limited energy services, the amendments would require the Maryland General Assembly to adopt or to consider legislation from the work group for the licensure of low voltage / limited energy services. The reporting date was delayed by a year, and the licensing provisions and effective date was delayed from July 1st, 2021, as originally passed, to January 1st, 2022, to give the boards and these folks more time to consider and enact the provisions.
Okay, is there a motion to concur? Yes.
The solar panel amendment was mine. I'd like to try to keep it. Everything else I have no problem with.
I just wanted to share information with the committee because I hadn't been in touch with the Senate sponsor last night. We talked about this, and also this morning I was in touch with Jack Wilson, who is on the electrician board, and at this point, I think that this committee may or may not be aware this has been worked on for the past several years, and he was urging us to move it at this point, and many of these issues have been worked through. So this is the most recent information I have as of this morning that I wanted to share with the body.
Senator McRae has not forwarded anything to me regarding accepting this. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but I have not heard. And I know there are other stakeholders who are not happy with some of the amendments. So I think it's a complicated issue. Senator Washington.
Yeah, I'd move to not concur because I know it's been an ongoing issue, but I think the Senate made some amendments, I think, to be more cautious. I do think we should check in sooner. I do believe we should allow the agencies to promulgate regulations. I don't, again, believe that they should have to come back to us. And so I think it's worth seeing if we could come to some agreement. That's why I'm, to conference out some differences. I mean,
Motion.
unless about, that's just.
Could we
not
hold it to
concur.
talk to the Senate sponsor, the way we held the SB 72?
Well, I think the
No,
Senate sponsor brought it
Senator-
in a certain way. We amended.
I mean,
it, so.
Yeah, first of all, it is in our body. I just don't, second hand, third hand is somewhat important, but also irrelevant. I don't believe, well, I don't know. I'm not sure what side you want to be on this, Senator Carrozza. You know, I think I heard from Senator Riley, he's not happy with parts of it. Right, but it's not like we can pick and choose. So what is your feeling?
Let's go to conference.
Okay, there's no guarantee, obviously, in a conference, so people understand that. Okay.
I'll be on the committee.
The chair will consider that.
Want me in the other town, I'll leave.
You might not have to leave, just might not be on the conference. Okay, any objection to going to conference? Thank you. Next.
Only concurrence I have.
Back to the one, Senator Simon Ayer.
Yeah, I checked with the sponsor. He's fine with the House amendments. So I would say, I don't know if it's recede.
Which number was that?
Edward?
What was that, Stacy?
It's House Bill 72.
Okay. The motion, House Bill 72, the motion is to recede and accept their amendments. Any objection? Seeing none, that is our motion. So I think we had 2 or 3 that will go to conference. I will decide a conference, and I'll get back to you and let you know who it is. Okay, let's go to our pick of the days. Let's go to, let's do list 44, because it has to go to another committee, all of them. Some are duplicates. Let's start with 222 and 224. So I guess we should work off of 224? What, it's your call. It's good.
It depends on whether you want to start with the bill with the amendments you want, or the bill without the amendments. Which is the Senate. Okay. Sorry, this is Senate Bill 224, Election Law, Correctional Facilities, Voter Registration, and Voting. So this bill requires the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services to take specified actions to provide individuals released from a correctional facility with a voter registration application and to inform individuals who are no longer incarcerated that they have a right to vote. The bill also requires the State Board of Elections to adopt regulations establishing a program to facilitate voter registration and voting by individuals incarcerated in a correctional facility who have a right to vote, and to report annually on the program and the implementation of the bill as a whole. The sponsor has offered amendments, and I didn't get them in time for the packet here.
Okay. Ian, would you help? Yep. Please.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Can I ask a question while we're waiting for the distribution?
Sure.
Is there any?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So while we're waiting for the distribution of the amendments, just a quick question. Do we have any intel as to how the House Rules Committee is meeting? I know that our Rules Committee is meeting this morning. Is the House popping out Senate bills?
We don't know, but there's a House bill, so we're really doing both bills. So whether they move it or not, we can,
As we discussed.
yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
So what these amendments do is they would require each facility to display specified signs, provide a ballot drop box, return ballots for individuals no longer in the facility to the correct local board of elections, and designate an employee as a point of contact between the State Board of Elections and the facility. The bill would also establish a voting rights ombudsman for incarcerated individuals. The bill provides for the duties of the ombudsman, including submission of a report to the State Board of Elections on the implementation of the provisions of this act, and finally requires the State Board to establish a toll-free hotline for inmates to call to receive information about voting.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know, the bill as it came in, I think, was fairly reasonable. It sort of, to some degree, replicates what we did in Baltimore, but on a more modest scale. But we're also talking with small jails that might hold a small number of people. The amendments call for an ombudsman and a drop box, and I think that is a bridge too far, given the, you know, there might be 4 people who are being held before trial or they're on a misdemeanor. I think the bills that came in my opinion, it makes sense. I think the extra stuff is unnecessary at this point, and we get a report on this stuff anyway, and so that would be my view. But the floor is open to an amendment, first on the bill, and then if somebody wants to offer the amendments. So I'll entertain a motion.
Move favorable on the bill.
Okay, it's been moved favorable on the bill. Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded. Discussion. Senator Simon Ayer.
If council could, I know we had some bill that dealt with this. I think it was a McCrae bill or something. If you can kind of just, what's the difference and where's the department on this? Because from what I understand, the department was okay with some of the amended bills, but not the original. So if you can just kind of.
So you recall that this committee passed Senate Bill 525 that was made into a statewide bill because it only dealt with one facility, though it's a state facility in Baltimore. It's their central booking facility, and it made it essentially a pilot program where a drop box was required to be in that facility, that the Department of Corrections would have to secure the drop box. Baltimore City Local Board of Election would be required to collect the materials from the drop box and send a material to the correct local boards and to the state board. And I'm just trying to think what else. It essentially was a pilot program to see whether the drop box would work well in that environment.
And I think it's important to note that it's probably the largest facility in the state.
This bill goes, that the department was favorable with amendment. Did they incorporate the amendments from the department?
I don't think that, I'm just trying to. My 400 folders.
I'd be shocked, but.
Yeah.
Which department? Yep.
Corrections, so corrections essentially in all of the letters on these similar type bills says we kind of have an existing program with the state board to do most of this. Jared, am I correct in that to provide information to the voters in these various facilities?
Yes, I think they were already talking about the part where they, upon release, the department was fine with all that, with making sure that they had the voter registration application and the documentation, and the notices. I think they were all fine with, corrections was fine with that. I know that I'm not sure what other objections corrections had with everything, which was one of the reasons why I think there was the creation of the ombudsman, which was to help facilitate it on both ends between corrections and the election administration.
But the bill called for appointing someone in the facility as a point of contact between the state board and the facility.
Right.
If I could, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then I want to go to Senator Patterson.
Okay, I'm just following up on this. They actually, and I commend the department, they actually said favorable to amendment and provided the actual amendment in the letter.
I can't find the
So-
letter, sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just,
Okay, thank you.
so is that in the bill? That's all I'm asking.
I don't know, because like I said, I can't find the letter. Thank you,
I
sorry.
have not seen that letter.
Senator Patterson?
Mr. Chair, I guess this question is for you, Mr. Chair. Did I understand you to say that we were going to put these at all the correctional centers? I mean, couldn't we limit it to a number at each one before we go through all this process? I don't think we need one for 5 people or 6 people like you had indicated.
As I understand it, Senator Patterson, there are a number of parts to it. One is the requirement that they do this education and practice, which they should be doing, but anecdotally I've heard is spotty, and I don't know if Jared has any better information. So that's one part of it, which should obviously happen in all the facilities.
Right.
Call for Dropbox at every one of them. That's, to me,
I'm not
what seems odd.
Yeah.
And ombudsman is an extra cost of $100,000. I mean, if they have to do it, they should do it.
I think
So-
we got, it's not more than 7 or 8 large correctional centers throughout the state of Maryland. I didn't know the exact numbers, but Jared, do you have any information on the, I know.
So this doesn't just include any of the state facilities, this includes all the county facilities as well. And the ones that the sheriff's officers contain is for anybody that's in pretrial detainee. So it's definitely a statewide implementation for this. So I don't have the actual numbers of how many facilities, correctional facilities it would encompass offhand. And one of the reasons too, I think, was that to designate an employee means that they can just change an employee's like title or status without necessarily making that they have to hire a new person as a point of contact between us and the correctional facilities.
Okay. Maybe we should make it a study. I see, if we don't think the bill is going to survive and get through, I don't want to lose it. I'm for one that we should take every effort we can to ensure that everybody gets a chance to vote. And why it's late in session, and I'm not the sponsor, but I just wonder if we cannot move it out, if we could convert it to a review or study to make sure we get all these facilities dates and, no? Okay, all right, well, let's move it.
Sorry, I didn't say anything either, but
Hold it for them. We're going to go to Vice Chair, then we're going to go to Senator Carrizo.
colleagues, first off, the testimony from the Department of Public Safety and Corrections, my staff is printing it now. Ms. Goodman is reviewing one copy, and the others will be coming to you shortly. Second, yes, it's late in session, but we do have the Senate and the House bills in our possession. And the House bill, we have time to deal with the House bill and get it through 2 readings, as long as they're okay with what we do. So I think there's time, and in my opinion, I'm just one person, I think we ought to do it, and I think we ought to do it right. And I
Okay.
think we have time for it. So.
Okay.
Sorry, one more thing. One more thing. A study, in my opinion, doesn't get us there because next year is the election year. And if we want folks to vote, we really have to pass it this year. So DPSCS, the Department of Public Safety and Corrections, can organize everything, get it out, get any devices and trainings and all that. Correct, Jared? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So that's why that's why the look of terror in my eyes.
Well, okay, the bill is in front of us. If no one, I'm sorry, I called on Senator Carrizo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Damaris's comments and make sure I understand these amendments to the bill. You mentioned that this will apply to all county detention facilities as well. And if that's the case, what does that mean for our local board of elections and implementation?
Well, it would just mean that they would have to have a Dropbox in those facilities and just and go around and collecting the information. I guess the campaign. Not the campaign, but the absentee ballots and absentee ballot applications from those Dropboxes from those facilities when they're there present. So that's what that means for it as well.
So do we know what that state number looks like across the board? So we know what we're, exactly how many drop boxes and exactly how many facilities statewide?
I do not know how many facilities there are statewide.
The bill letter says
I'm reading the fiscal
17.
note now to see if it's in there.
No, the letter
But the
says.
fiscal note just has for secure drop boxes, it's an additional $30,000.
So the letter in front of you says 17 facilities.
So it's 17 facilities, and it's how much per drop box?
Well, the fiscal note has a $30,000 drop box price tag.
How much per? 2,500, did we hear that last week?
Yeah, I would say that.
Right now, we have the Senate version in front of us without the amendments. It gets started, it ensures the information and other things going on. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those, Senator?
Jerry, just want to clarify. People who have been incarcerated for felonies and they're in the facilities are not allowed to vote by state law. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
People in any facility for pretrial and misdemeanors may vote.
That is correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we had a level playing field. For instance, in the letter from the Office of the Secretary, Department of Public Safety, they say there are 17 state correctional facilities that house offenders sentenced to a period of incarceration for 18 months or longer. But, Jared, it's my impression that that does not address misdemeanor to felony. The length of time, since I'm not on judiciary, I don't know the technical answer to this. Someone could be in a prison, but not for a felony.
I think that's right, but as was stated, that doesn't include local facilities, like the Prince George's County Jail.
I believe there's only one state correctional facility, which is Baltimore City. The others are Hagerstown, Eastern Shore, that type of thing? Yeah, Cumberland. All right, I'm just trying to get my arms around the scope of this, and thanks for the clarification, Jared.
Okay. Senator Gallion.
Just to thank you, Mr. Chair, to speak on the amendment. And we had some bills not really to voting and imprisonment and stuff last year, but just generally, like they start hearing about ombudsman and adding these positions, and I just have some concern with that. I mean, you're going to do something, let's try to do it through the current folks we have, instead of always trying to add positions and grow this bureaucracy. I really
Senator, that was in the amendment. No one moved the amendment. We're just doing the bills that came in.
So you mean the Senate version?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Senator Simon-Ayer.
Yeah, I would like to move the department's amendment.
Please.
I was just saying I'd like to move the department's amendments if I could.
Is there a second for Senator Simon-Ayer's amendment? Okay. Briefly, we can discuss it. We sort of implied discussion on this. You want to speak to it, Senator Simon?
Well, again, I mean, a criticism coming out of this committee often is that the departments don't weigh in and provide information, and they have taken the time to detail what they're doing and what they did last year, and they accepted these amendments last year in House Bill 568, I believe, and then they ran out of time with COVID. And I don't think our committee has even taken these amendments up if they had accepted them last year. So I think they're the experts. I'd like to hear from Jared if he's had a chance to see them and think if they're reasonable amendments.
It's a policy question. I'm not sure.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So I think this is an important bill, and I agree with Senator Simon Ayer that I think
Well,
we ought to. I'm speaking on his amendment. No? Okay, you tell me.
Well, first of all, I had another person ahead of you. I didn't know. I thought it was a point of order.
Okay.
Hold tight. I'm going to defer that for now, unless we yeah. Senator Watt
Okay,
first.
so on the amendment, I'd like to, I'd like to, I guess, speak against the amendment in that I have had, it's very clear that we need to do something. There needs to be additional work to ensure that everybody votes. I've had experience, and I've read it, I understand the types of amendments they put in. They say, we're doing it, it's not necessary. But you have advocates and formerly incarcerated people saying that these programs are not sufficient. So I would vote against, the department's amendments and ask that we pass the clean bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I was going to say is I think there are some aspects of the department's proposed amendments that are thoughtful and not and seem okay with me. What I don't like, there's one aspect of it, 2-501B3 makes it look like it says provide, so each correctional facility shall, and it says provide a mail-in ballot to an eligible voter if requested by the eligible voter. I don't know if it was their intent, but it sounds like it would be the warden or an employee who would actually hand an inmate a ballot, which I think could be inappropriate. It doesn't seem enough. So my suggestion, Mr. Chair, I think this is important. I think we have time, and if we're voting again this afternoon, I will volunteer to sit with a few colleagues who might find this interesting and spend a little more time with the department's amendments and see whether we come back to the committee with a recommendation.
We're going to move it this morning. It's got to go to JPR as well. So we can vote the amendments up or down, or I guess people can amend the amendment. I took this list first because they all have seconds on them. And if there are amendments, it's going to be a little bit of a process. Senator Gallion?
Question for the vice chair. So the line that you mentioned that about the warden handling the ballots under this amendment. So if under the clean bill, if someone wants a ballot, who would hand it to them? Wouldn't it still be the warden?
So, Senator Kagan, I just want to point out that these amendments as drafted are what was in the House Bill 568 that passed third reader last year in 2020. That's what they're referencing, and that same language was in there. I don't think it's meant to infer that they will actually provide them with the ballot, but that when the ballot comes in, it's provided to the inmate so that they can vote.
Somebody's got to hand it to them and then take it. So wouldn't that be, it would have to be a worker at the facility, correct?
Yeah, unless there are mailboxes and the prisoners have access to the mailboxes. So I think you're absolutely right. Someone's got to give it to them, and then they got to collect it from them in a multiple envelopes. But I think there's no way to send it to them or to transmit it to them.
They hide in the birthday cake.
Just a quick question. In the department's amendments, they have a definition of correctional facility, and it seems to be a different scope than in the bill we're looking at.
Are you, Senator?
Page 2, line 26.
So you're not in the amendments?
Well, I was giving you the bill line, and then in the amendments, it's A2 in the beginning of the amendment. So what's the difference in scope there? I mean, I haven't had time to talk with the department, but I imagine. So in the amendments that were handed out, in the letter, on the second page, it says 2-501 and then A2. And then in the bill that I'm pulling up as a reprint on the computer, that's page 2, line 26, which is under 1-303.1 A2. So, I don't know, is this trying to get, so those little tiny people that have 4 or 5 in them are not included in this bill? Is that the intent that you?
I don't know if it's the intent. But certainly means a facility for detaining or confining individuals that is operated by a correctional unit is very broad. And without greater knowledge of what other types of facilities that might encompass, the definition in last year's bill or the amendments offered by the department might be more specific.
Okay, because I think from last year, that was part of the concern, that you're going to hit all these real tiny little facilities, and their definition was saying, get the big ones where they have, where you're not overburdening the locals with these very small units.
Senator, where do you see the definition that you think narrows it? Because I'm looking at their amendments.
No. So he's looking at the bill, the Senate Bill 224, on page 2, in line 26 and 27. He's also looking at the letter departed by correction.
Page 2, line 26.
Yes.
Correctional facility means facility for detainees.
And are you asserting that the definition on page 2 is general or much narrower?
It's broader.
Right.
And then it appears the department is trying to bring the scope in some, so it doesn't get all these little tiny.
And I understand, and I guess that's why it's the West amendments don't address that issue. So the West amendments are not the corrections.
Yeah, I thought we were done with the West amendments.
I'm sorry?
I thought we were done with the West amendments. I'm not talking about West amendments.
Okay.
He's talking about the letter from the
The
department.
department's amendments versus the bill.
Okay.
So I think that's a good thing. And again, it passed the House, I think pretty, I don't know what the vote was, but.
Yeah, but Senator, if we're not moving the West amendments, and it's primarily about education, that should go to every facility. I think if you're adopt the drop box, narrowing it makes sense, but we have not adopted that.
Well, this letter is to the original bill, not to West amendments. I mean, this is what we've had for 2 months.
And I guess my question is, what in here, in the original bill, minus any amendments, shouldn't be done at all correctional facilities?
Well, I go back to the vice chair. I don't know. I'd actually like to talk to the department. This is a Senate bill that we're dealing with, and it's April 2nd, so I didn't know we were going to be moving this one, so I didn't really reach out because we have so many other bills we're dealing with.
But the issue, we have a House bill, too, and it has a second. So if we're going to move it, regardless, I mean, whatever we do on one, we're going to do on the second. I just happen to take this one up first.
Right.
So,
I was just saying
and the
that-
Senate bill might go to rules anyway, so really, it's the House bill we're going to be dealing with, or that has momentum.
Yeah. I just think these amendments have been through the House, been accepted in the House, are good, well thought out between the department and
No.
last year.
Wait
Those
a
are last year's.
minute. Hold on. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, the House amendments are the West amendments.
Correct. That's correct.
They
I
are
was-
not the corrections amendments.
Right. I was referring to last year's bill that incorporated these amendments.
I understand that.
Just a point of
Look,
clarity.
ladies and gentlemen, we have the House bill that basically adopted the West amendments, We have the West bills that came in, and he is suggesting we conform it. I disagree with some of the amendments. Is that not right?
No, Senator Simonaire is looking at House Bill 568 from last year. The Department of Corrections sent a request to adopt those amendments, not the West bill, not the Wilkins bill, not that. They want last year's bill. That's what he's talking about. He doesn't want the West amendments. He doesn't really want the West bill. He wants the bill from last year. That's what he's talking about.
This body never voted on.
Right.
And I'm not sure how much the House spent time on last year's bill this year. So I really think we should focus on the House and Senate bill. I think we either first accept the West amendments or we don't, and we strip them off the House bill, depending on whether we like them or we don't like them, and it's open to any other amendments. That's the process. We're not debating last year's bill. I mean, if there's an amendment from there you'd like to offer to the bill, we can do it.
I thought that's where we were. I thought we rejected, we didn't offer the West amendments. There was a motion on the bill, and I offered the department's amendments, and I put an asterisk, said these are the amendments that passed in last year's bill in the House, that's all.
Okay. Now, I don't have them in front of me, and you talked to, well,
This letter.
yeah, but
They're complicated enough that I thought we ought to take a little time. And I volunteered. And you?
okay. Yeah, I want to move the bill, number one. Number two, I don't understand how this definition of correctional facility changes anything. It says a state correctional facility or local correctional facility. How does that narrow it?
I think that it actually
Broadens it.
specifies which facilities. This one, a facility for detaining or confining individuals that is operated by a correctional unit. I don't know for sure whether a correctional unit includes like a sheriff's office that has a little area in the back they consider that operated. I mean, that's the concern with the vagueness. The other one is a little more specific in that you're only talking about a state correctional facility or a local correctional facility. I think that is the concern that Senator Simonaire is expressing.
Yes.
I'm going to add in that conversation, I'm on DPSCS's website, and I don't know where they're getting 17 from, because they have 20 that are under correctional facilities, and then they've got 5 that are under detention facilities. And I'm not a lawyer, but detain means detention or a correctional facility, so it would be more than 17, which is where the cost of the House amendments with drop-off boxes at all of them, plus the sheriff's office, plus the holding. We've got a place in Rockville that's like a holding place until they go to Clarksburg to go to jail. And then what about pre-release detention centers? And what about, I mean, I think the definition is going to be important. So we're not doing an unfunded mandate on too many of our locals for really small entities, or where people are there so briefly that they really can, if they're able to vote, they can vote. They can get their ballot sent to their house and have the right to vote there and not have to go through a detention center or holding facility.
Senator, just a question. Do we know if they submitted these to the House
Yes.
and the House did not accept them? Is that right? Well, the bill doesn't reflect it.
Right.
Okay. Senator Washington?
Thank you, Chairman. So, again, I'm speaking against, again, adopting amendments as reflected in the departmental letter, because this discussion does, this section 2-501 is narrowing and relieving the responsibility to ensure eligible voters in the state of Maryland the ability to exercise their right to vote. So it doesn't matter whether they're in a detention center or a holding center, or if they're, on election day and they happen to be, with 5 other people in a, converted cell or whatever, they have a right to vote. And that's the point. They should be given an opportunity to vote. These, again, every single portion of this amendment that is offered by the department is an attempt to narrow our obligation and opportunity to facilitate participating in the electoral process. That is why the committee rejected it. That is also why, while they may have accepted it last year, there's been a group of people working diligently over the interim to really make the types of reform that they think are needed. I do like, so again, I just would move unfavorable on these amendments, and let's move on to pass the bill.
Motion is to adopt the Simon Air amendments, which is the DCPS amendments. That's on the floor. Those that would support the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Sure.
I have a definition of correctional unit if you want it.
Okay.
Correctional unit means a unit of Maryland state or local government that is directly responsible for the care, custody, and control of individuals committed to the custody of the unit for the commission or alleged commission of a crime or an act that would be a crime if committed by an adult. Correctional unit includes the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, the Department of Juvenile Services, and the Office of the Sheriff of a county or other unit of government with responsibility for operating a local correctional facility or county detention center.
Okay, roll call on the Simon Air amendment.
The department amendment,
Correct.
unamended.
Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Lamb?
No.
Senator Hester? Senator Ellis? No. Senator Gallion?
Yes.
Senator Carozza?
Yes.
Senator Washington?
No.
Senator Riley?
Yes.
Senator Patterson? Senator Simonaire?
Yes.
And Senator Penske?
No.
5-6.
Okay. It's defeated. On the bill, roll call.
Senator Kagan?
Aye. That means there are no other amendments.
Just as the bill unamended.
It's
Right.
the Senate bill unamended.
It's the Senate bill on amendments, correct. Okay, Senator Lamb and Senator Hester, on the bills in front of us and open to amendments. I didn't mean to rush it too quickly.
Yeah, I guess to Ms. Goodman, was there another amendment that, I think I had submitted an amendment for psychiatric hospitals. Do you happen to have that?
Was this for the Senate bill or the House bill?
This was for the Senate Bill 224. There's I think I have I'm trying to pull up the amendment myself.
I apologize if I don't have a copy of that.
It's 933526.
Okay.
Are you able to pull that up, or do you?
3224. Say that again, please.
933526.
933526. This amendment, Senator Lamb, why don't you explain your amendment? I'm not really sure yet.
So the amendment just requires that the similar information, I believe, be provided to individuals who are in state forensic residential sites.
What are state forensic sites? I mean,
These are
what are the
hospitals
implications,
or
Senator?
These are hospitals or other residential facilities under MDH who are awaiting treatment.
Let me just ask a question, and I'll pass it on to these other folks. They're not incarcerated, correct? They're not being held against their will?
I think they are, because they're being held, they're pending further criminal proceedings.
Oh, okay. That's what I wasn't
Yeah.
clear on.
Right.
Let's go to Senator Riley.
Thank you very much. Senator, would any of these people be classified with diminished capability on their decision-making process?
So how do you define diminished capability? Because we allow a lot of people with diminished
I
capability to
presume
vote.
that there are people who are incarcerated because they don't have the ability to understand their environment, understand their, the results of their actions. Are these people in these facilities because of diminished capacity?
Well, I think there's a distinction between why some folks are incarcerated because of crimes that they've committed, not necessarily because of their mental capacity necessarily. We allow people of all mental capacities, whether high or low, to vote. It's not there's no IQ test per se for someone to be able to vote. The reason they've lost their ability to vote is because they've committed a felony and they're in these institutions. So these folks are still pending criminal proceedings. They have not, and that's why we just want to make sure that they have that information to be able to vote.
Okay. I'm Senator Washington. Sometimes the metal bar blocks, not you, not you, the metal bar, the gray metal bar blocks my ability to see the light. That's also true with Senator Gallion sometimes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
Now,
Senator Washington.
Okay. I like the idea. I'm, again, concerned. I don't know what it does to the bill. I think perhaps it's something to take up, next year, or to think about it a little more, to get some testimony exactly on it. So while I like it, I would, I think I wouldn't want to support the amendment at this time, just because I just don't know what the impact is on the bill success.
Well, just to be clear, it is already the law. Like, these folks do have the ability to vote unless the judge finds them incompetent to be able to vote. These are pretrial folks.
And it's operated, I guess what I'm saying is that this bill is focused on correctional facilities at the moment?
My understanding was, that could be in any hospital, correct? If someone is being restrained and is under the auspices?
They could be in state correctional facilities, pretrial, or elsewhere.
So that, I think, Senator, that's the challenge. So is there just one place where individuals are sent? So from an administrative perspective, it would be easier for the board to say, okay, this is the hospital, this is the location where these individuals are detained or being treated or being evaluated. So I guess my question is there just one place or 3 places in the state, or could someone be detained at any place at any time?
I think it could be any place at any time.
So I
And
think
Senator,
from a management, for me, from a programmatic perspective, that makes the administration of this very difficult, and we'd have to figure out how that works. So
Yeah, and I'm going to echo the senator from Baltimore. Having a person of point of contact, there's 2 prisoners at Hopkins. In a correctional facility, the person in charge of it is required to do this stuff. I just don't know if we can have any quality control or quantity control, both if in each hospital in the state, if there's 1 prisoner or 2 prisoners. And, I don't think we should say it if we can't do it or ensure that it's done. I think it's a valiant thing to pursue, but, I think it's extremely difficult. So so.
All right, well, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay. Yes, I think I had Senator Hester from before.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going back to the previous Simon Air amendment. I guess I was kind of confused. I thought that we were going to look at that amendment, and there was going to be an amendment offered to that amendment that would help to make sure that the bill actually passed in the House. So I'm just curious, was there a point of contention within that bill, which is why the vice chair offered to look at it offline? Or am I confused?
We don't know what the House is going to do.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't take the department's amendments the first time.
All right.
So us adopting it doesn't guarantee anything. Now, look, we didn't take their other amendments, and they might not be happy with it, and they can recede, they can concur, or they can go to conference. I mean,
Okay.
we can only do what we can do.
So as the bill currently amended stands, is there anything about the number of people in the facility that was the original point?
Repeat, please, for the council.
The number of people in the facility, is there any definition of how many people in the facility?
No, there's no definition about how many people are in the facility.
No, in the bill.
No, it's not in the bill either.
It just says the correctional facility, I think.
Okay. Yes. Yes. It just says a state or well, this one just says a facility for detaining or confining individuals operated by a correctional unit. So that could mean any facility of any size. I mean, that's.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I really like Senator Hester's idea, and I think that can reduce the amount of an unfunded mandate on small jurisdictions in every Barney Fife, sheriff's office with 2 people there. So what if, I'm looking at and I defer to Ms. Goodman, but what if in 2-501 we modify the definition, correctional facility means a state correctional facility or a local correctional facility with at least X number of detainees, and I don't know what X is. Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 5? I don't know what that number should be.
I can foresee with that particular request is that this type of facility changes the number of individuals all the time. So you could start with 5, you can have 15, you can go back, and then you have to figure out a point in time at which to determine what the size of the facility would be. So that would be a challenging. So if you want to do that, you have to pick a point in time and determine what that number would be.
So let me try tossing something out for your consideration, which would be something like as of the general election date from the prior election, or it could be the average number in the prior year. Senator Riley looks like he has an idea.
But before I call on him. Okay, I hadn't seen your light, Senator. Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear. The fiscal note says $179,000, and I assume that's spread over 24 jurisdictions. Just so we have some breadth of the universe. Senator Ellis.
Okay. A very patient Senator Ellis on Good Friday to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have states, a lot of states like Georgia, disenfranchising large sets of people. And I don't think we should be disenfranchising small sets of people, saying, hey, there's a small number there, but let's not spend the money. We should enfranchise everyone. We are a great, rich state. Maryland is the richest state in the nation. Report came out with highest median family income in the nation. We have the money. Let's enfranchise everyone. Not to say it's too small, forget them. I think that's not a good policy. Let's make these voting rights available to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Riley, followed by Senator Carrozza.
Thank you very much. Well spoken, Senator Ellis. But on the point of Senator Kagan's bill, capacity. We don't have to measure, just a capacity of 10, capacity of 15. Thank you.
Senator
Going back to Senator Kagan's point, we do not have the information to know what the impact would be on the locals if you're going to be that inclusive. And so, I mean, I'm struggling right now because I actually had prepared for these other voting lists and I didn't know. I would have called to try to find out from my locals what this means, as well as, at least, I did not read this letter from the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services to make sure I understood the amendments. So I'm extremely concerned that we are trying to rush this and we really don't know what the local impact is. And so I don't know if we can go back to Senator Kagan offered to work on this so we can at least talk to the department, know what it means for our locals. But if there's I think we have to factor in, if we're going to be that inclusive, I think, have a responsibility to know what it's going to mean on our local jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you. The West bill was heard 5 weeks ago, and we have a fiscal note that says it's $179,000 spread across the 24 jurisdictions. So I'm a little confused by the confusion. We've had this in front of us. We haven't voted on it, but we had a hearing on it. That means it's in our purview. There was a fiscal note that assessed how much it would cost. So across the whole state of 24 jurisdictions, it's $179,000. It's basically ensuring that people who are being confined are told they can vote, are given the ballot, and then receive the ballot and send it in. Now, we don't know how many will vote. But the bill's fairly straightforward. So we're going to go ahead with the vote. We have a week left or 9 days left, and it's got to go to another committee and back to the House. So we're going to vote it, and unless there are other amendments, we're going to go to a roll call. I heard your concern, duly noted.
Meant to the,
no,
I was trying to understand if there was amendment to the Department of Public Safety amendments.
No. There's no amendment on the floor. We have the bill as it came in with Senator West. We have rejected other amendments. That's where we are. Senator.
I have one more amendment, and then I'll be done. I hear your concerns that the department is, a page long. So I would like to just offer an amendment to put the correctional facility definition in the bill that would provide more clarity. As our council has shown us what the difference is. So it'd be just a simple replacement of the correctional facility definition.
So clarifying.
Okay, so what comes out and what goes in?
Okay, so on the letter that you would replace the current language in 224's definition. And I believe that, yeah, the same
Lines
line.
26 and 27?
Right, just a simple substitution of line 26 and 27 for the definition that the department put in.
Okay, and let me ask committee counsel, what are the implications? Are there any implications, or is it simply a clarification? Does it expand, broaden, or just confirm?
Is narrow, is the short answer.
So just so we understand, what would be cut out if we adopt this amendment?
Small units, let me pull up the definition again here. The definition for correctional unit that is in the bill at the moment includes any of these units that are responsible for the care, custody, and control of individuals from the Department of Public Safety and Corrections, the Department of Juvenile Services, and the Office of Sheriff of a county or other unit of government with responsibility for operating a local correctional facility. The definition proffered in the letter by the Department of Corrections would replace that with just a state correctional facility or a local correctional facility. So it would narrow the number of units that would be subject to the requirements of the bill.
Again, just to be clear, if the proposed definition says local correctional facility, there are other holding situations, confining situations that are not considered a local correctional facility?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Can we assume they're smaller than a local correctional facility? I mean, a local correctional facility is like the Prince George's County Jail. Jared, can you help us here? Do you know this aspect?
Sure. I think you can take a look at the definition because they distinguish between operating a local correctional facility or a county detention center. So the definition would basically eliminate county detention centers, the office of the sheriff, if they have any facility as well, because it limits it to just the local correctional facilities.
Which one deletes those?
Jared, the question is,
So
adopting the amendment that uses local correctional facility is narrower and would exclude local detention centers.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Because we would have to, because with statutory construction, we would have to look at it and say, what is the difference between a correctional unit in under the corrections article and our definition, and why are they different? And so those are the key parts there.
Jared, we have it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Simon Air Amendment, everyone understands? It'll keep local correctional facilities, but it may exclude some other detention centers. Sure.
Yeah, I know, like in my county, we have a sheriff's department. They have like 1 or 2 cells. Under this current bill, they'd have to set up a process for those 1 or 2 cells, whether they're or not. And we want everybody to get a vote, but this is setting up a program to do extra outreach, so they get this. We don't have a program to give all this to every single voter in Maryland. We're saying it's important to get it to them when they're in the prisons or wherever this is. But for the ones where they may only have 1 or 2, to set up a complete program to do that, I think this is a good amendment. It's been run through the department, and appreciate it. And roll call, please.
Okay, roll call on the Simon Air Amendment, replacing the language on the definition.
Senator Kagan.
Clarifying that the Simon Air Amendment that said set up all sorts of process and stuff, that was in the House version of the bill and the proposed West amendments. It is not in the current bill. I think we want to be broad, and so I vote no on the amendment.
Senator Lamb.
No.
Senator Hester.
No.
Senator Ellis.
No.
Senator Gallion.
Yeah.
Senator Carozza.
Yes.
Senator Washington.
No.
Senator Riley.
Yes.
Senator Patterson.
No, and it's funny, I believe a large portion of those who would. Oh. Thank you. And explaining my vote. You know, we're talking about the sheriff and all the folks. Those folks have access to all the voting location, early vote, all the vote. But those that are confined would not have that flexibility. And I believe in having an opportunity for everybody to vote, so I'm voting no.
Senator Simon Air.
Yes.
And Senator Penske. 4-7.
Okay. The West bill as it came in without amendments is before us. Roll call.
Senator Kagan.
Aye.
Senator Lamb.
Yeah.
Senator Hester.
Aye.
Senator Ellis.
Yes.
Senator Gallion.
No.
Senator Carozza.
No.
Senator Washington.
Yes.
Senator Riley.
No.
Senator Patterson. Senator Simon Air.
No.
And Senator Penske.
Yes.
7-4.
Passes 7-4, and I can hopefully assume that we will conform the House bill to the same language with the same vote. Any objection? Seeing none, those two are disposed of. And again, they have to go to JPR. So if we spend an hour and 15 minutes, they're going to spend 4 hours on it. So plus our good senator from the 34th district, I'm sure will have a lot to say on that one. Okay. Let's go back. Hold on. We're second on the. Let's go to HB 2.
House Bill 2, Maryland Environmental Service Reform Act of 2021. This is the cross file of Senate Bill 2, which passed the Senate unanimously. This is obviously the House bill version of it. However, it sounds like there's been some negotiation back and forth between the parties involved, and the Senate, so the Budget and Tax Committee has actually sent this to us with an amendment just to strike the language making this an emergency bill and instead have the bill take effect on July 1st, 2021. So that's the amendment that they're asking us to consider. So as a reminder, this is the bill that makes overarching changes to the governance and administration of the Maryland Environmental Services Act, or Maryland Environmental Service.
Is there a motion
On the amendments?
on the amendment to make an emergency bill?
No, to not make it an emergency bill, to make it effective July 1st.
Make an emergency bill. Is there anyone who wants to be recorded against that amendment? Against that motion? Seeing the bill as amended, Senator Patterson?
I just want to say I had a chance to speak with the sponsor of this bill on the floor last evening, and she seemed to be very comfortable with the proposed amendment, that perhaps it gives it a little bit more teeth, and I'm happy to support it.
Great. Okay. This bill needs to go to Budget and Taxation as well, so we're looking to move that.
It's been there.
Oh,
We're second.
we're second. Cool. Okay. All right. So is there any dissent? Anyone who want to be recorded against this bill as amended? Seeing none, the bill will go to the floor as amended.
Okay. Let's go to 78, please.
76. So House Bill 76, Water Pollution Control, Intervention in Civil Actions, Rights, and Authority. We are secondary on this bill. We have not seen it before, though, yet. This bill clarifies that a person who meets the threshold standing requirements under the Federal Clean Water Act has an unconditional right and the authority to intervene in a civil action initiated by the state in state court to require compliance with Subtitle 3 of Title 9 of the Environment Article, which covers water pollution control, related regulations, or any related discharge permit. A person exercising the right to intervene pursuant to the bill must act in accordance with applicable practices, procedures, and laws in the state. A person who meets the requirements to intervene under the bill has the same rights as an interested person or aggrieved party under the Clean Water Act, including the right to apply for judicial appeal. We are secondary on this. This has passed JPR unanimously. Just in case any of you are looking at testimony in the bill file, the electronic bill file, originally MACO and MML had opposed the bill in its original form. The House amended it to address their concerns. I have received letters from both saying that they have withdrawn their opposition. So the bill has been worked out in its current form.
It has passed JPR and has been sent down to us. Senator Ellis, followed by Senator Simon Ayer, and then Carozza.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, question to council. So, how is a person, quote unquote, defined in this bill? Corporation, individuals?
I don't think it's actually defined in the bill, so that means it's the general definition of person throughout our code, which is an individual or an entity.
Okay, thank you.
Simon Ayer.
Yeah, I just wanted a little more detail. In my district, there was a little Dobbins Island, and it became the poster child for some organizations, and some claim they try to raise money off of it and so forth. And they tried to get standing. Will this, just so I understand it, will this allow any organization just to get in a lawsuit even though they don't have any nexus to a claim such as Little Dobbins Island? And just, because that lawsuit went on for a long, long time. Some thought it was political so they could raise money at the expense of the actual person to get it resolved.
So not knowing the details of that case, I can't comment on that
No, I'm just
specifically.
looking forward.
All right, but so the purpose of this is under the Federal Clean Water Act, there is an authorization for citizen interventions, and it's just, it has not been, the argument has been that it has not been clear enough in state law because the Maryland Department of the Environment has sort of delegated authority under the federal law to do a lot of this permitting. So the state law sort of kicks in terms of, it ends up playing out under state law rather than under federal law. So according to the AG, this does not expand standing rights, it just clarifies what should be the current law.
Okay.
I don't know whether that means, I don't know the nuances of what the citizen sort of intervention is and whether there has to be some nexus there.
Okay, let me just ask it a little different then. Does this only apply to state projects, or is this private individuals that they can get standing with? So in other words, is it just the permits that MDE puts out so they can, check with the government what they're doing? Or is this expansive to that you can go to a private citizen where they have a case, like in my district? I'm just looking for the scope of what this applies to. Is it just government projects, or does this go to the private citizen as well?
So the permits can be for private projects as well. So this would be clarifying the right of citizens and citizen groups to intervene in those permitting determinations between the state and a private entity.
Okay, so if I had property and I got a permit, some advocate group could come in, even though they didn't have any current standing, and they could put a lawsuit in against me?
If they have standing under the Federal Clean Water Act, then yes.
Okay, and just in a real brief, what gives them standing for a private citizen? I've got a lot of waterfront.
Yeah.
And I just don't want my constituents being harassed by advocate group just unnecessarily.
I honestly, I'd need to do more research before I could give you a clear summary of the federal
I'm not slowing the bill
standing.
down, but if I could get that before it gets to the floor, just so I can have some clarification. Thank you.
That's easy to get. We'll find that. I think there's got to be a nexus. It's not a broad nexus, but council will find out.
Here, and I can read, so sorry. And this is because we just got this yesterday. I'm still kind of playing catch up. According to the AG's letter of advice on this that was requested in the House, it says that intervention in the context is limited to a party who has an interest which is or may be adversely affected under federal regulations. So the right to intervene applies to actions where citizens could have commenced in their own right if the government had not acted first. So I'll try to get a little bit more clarity, but it does, the letter of advice indicates that there has to be some interest of the third party. It can't just be, I don't like it.
See if they have an interest in the Chesapeake Bay. Does that give them the nexus to come after any on the waterfront?
I'll try to figure that out.
Carosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could again just summarize, I know that the bill was amended. Did the amendment narrow down the type of scenarios where this intervention can occur?
I believe it did. That's why MML and NACO are fine with the bill now. I think it narrowed it down, but.
I guess I would also echo Senator Simonair's concerns, not, being clear on what the nexus might be. It seems like that could be stretched pretty broadly.
On the bill, those that, I don't know if we had a motion to, we're second on it. I think the motion is to concur with the JPR who sent it down to us. Will anybody object to concurring with their favorable?
Point of order. I don't know that we're doing a concur. I think, don't we just vote on the bill?
Yeah, I didn't mean that literally. I meant agree with their favorable. It was not a concurrence in the formal sense.
I'd be voting against because I don't have the information.
Okay. Let's do a roll call. Senator Wiley first.
Sure. Ms. Morton, you said it came down from JPR, including the senator from District 34 voted in favor of it.
It was unanimous in JPR.
Thank you very much. Just clarifying.
Roll call.
Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Lamb?
Yes.
Senator Hester?
Yes.
Senator Ellis?
Yes.
Senator Gallion?
No.
Senator Carozza?
No.
Senator Washington?
Yes.
Senator Riley?
In solidarity with District 34, yes.
Senator Patterson?
Yes.
Senator Simonair?
Name my vote. Pardon me? That's what I'm going to do. I know, I'm just saying I don't like to abstain normally, but I'm going to abstain until I get some more information on this.
And Senator Penske?
Yes.
8-2-1.
8-1 on the vote to favorable along with JPR to send it to the floor. Okay, 334. Is that the cross file?
I believe so. Just a second. Yes. So Senate Bill 334 is the cross file of House Bill 76. JPR added amendments to conform it to the House cross file. So we'd have to approve both the amendments and then give it a favorable with amendment.
So we will adopt the amendment. It's a favorable with the same vote being reflected, 8-1. Okay, well, we got through 5 bills in an hour and a half. That's probably going to call for a voting session on Monday. Let's go to voting list 43.
House Bill 98, Maryland Higher Education Outreach and College Access Pilot Program alterations, the Maryland College Access Act. This bill makes the Maryland Higher Education Outreach and College Access Pilot Program permanent by repealing the termination date and making other conforming changes. The purposes of the program are to essentially encourage low-income Maryland high school students to attend and complete college and connect potential college and university students with nonprofit organizations that have a history of successful higher education outcomes for targeted use and other items. The Maryland Higher Education Commission must continue to submit an annual report about the program beginning in fiscal 2023. The governor must include $200,000 annually in the state budget for the program. No amendments, no opposition, and B&T has approved the amount.
It's been moved and seconded on HB 98. Would anybody like to be recorded in the negative on the favorable motion? Seeing no hands, HB 98 passes. Let's go to 171.
House Bill 171, State Department of Education, School Discipline, Data Collection. This bill requires the Maryland State Department of Education to make available as a data download on its website disaggregated discipline-related data at the state, local school system, and school levels. For all data made publicly available, MSDE must include disaggregated data related to any disproportional disciplinary practices of a local school system or a public school, and annually report the data to the governor and the General Assembly. The department must report the disproportionality data for any school identified as, quote, a high suspending as specified, and include alternative schools and programs and public separate day schools in any calculation of disproportionality data. There are no amendments, and there was no opposition.
Just a quick
Senator
question.
Simon Ayer?
Who was reading that? Was that you? Yeah. So this is just reporting incidents in schools, and they have to do it disaggregated and so forth. And then there's some percentage that they're called high suspending, and they have to just report that they're high suspending. Is there any, I don't know, penalty's the word, but I'm trying to get to the intent because I missed this bill hearing. I mean, I think by putting these on a web page, your school had 25% suspensions is going to just pressure the schools not to suspend. So what was the purpose of posting these? Because we want to get disruptive people out of the school and dealt with, and
Data already, but they don't, but it's at such a high level that they can't figure out where some of the issues are. And my understanding from the sponsor is that they wanted more granular level data to try to understand if there's certain schools and certain populations that are being disproportionately disciplined.
again, I appreciate the motive, but as a policy, I'm concerned. I think we should be able to track the data. I have no problem with that. But I think what's going to happen with this is they're just going to say, oh, we're starting to get towards a certain percentage, and instead of dealing with potentially a real problem, they're going to underreport it and stop suspending people. I think the goal is we want to make sure people aren't being suspended because of their race or whatever, and we should deal with that. But I think what's going to happen with this is schools are just going to stop simply suspending for certain actions because they're fearful that they're going to get highlighted on it. And I don't know this is the best solution to get to the actual problem. And I'm open to hear what the committee's thoughts are on that.
Senator Hester.
I just had a question about how this could fit with the community supports partnership, portion of the Blueprint 2.0. Because I think they were supposed to look at all of these discipline issues once that kicked in. And so I agree, this is incredibly important to address. I do worry about making it public to everybody and whether that's the right policy call. Like, is it a website or is it a report to somebody else so that the right people...
It says, the department shall make public in an accessible and disaggregated electronic spreadsheet format all discipline-related data as a data download on the department's website at the state, local school system, and school level.
So I guess I'm wondering if the policy question is, do we want it to be available to the public or do we want it to be available to people who need to know? And I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Well, I mean, that's a policy question, obviously. I'm going to support the bill, and I understand Senator Simon Ayer is just going to put pressure. But I think the more knowledge we have, it can also highlight pockets or trends. And if a child acts up in a very serious way that threatens the ability to provide instruction, I think we should know that. I mean, hopefully there's not a lot of bias and we can get rid of any bias. But I think the most information we have is better for us. Some of this data is already disaggregated. I mean, I think the sponsor actually quoted a number. So some of this is already kept, so it's not a surprise. People have quoted the number of student suspensions by race. So some of this is already kept and public. In terms of your point, Senator Hester, I think it's hard to justify that we have the information, but the parent community doesn't. I just think we can only look bad in that. And it may raise a furor, and that's something we have to deal with. It doesn't, people, as we've heard for the last 2 weeks, people can be angry. It doesn't mean they're right. But we have to deal with that all the time. So I'm going to be voting for it, but obviously everyone will cast their own vote. Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Goodman, is there a percentage where anywhere in this bill or in law where it's actually defined by a number which school is a high suspension school? Is there a percentage?
Defines those terms. So at this point in time, in current law, there's nothing that is defined as a high suspending school. That is added in this bill on page 4, line 13. So they're defining that in the bill.
And how is that defined, please?
I'm sorry?
How is that defined?
High suspending includes the following schools that suspend students in each subgroup disaggregated by race, ethnicity, disability status, and English language proficiency. An elementary school that suspends 10% or more of its students in each subgroup, and 2, a secondary school that suspends 25% or more of its students in each subgroup.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, thank you for that. So another point, the issue that Senator Simon brought up by a school being stigmatized if their numbers are too high and they will stop suspending, I think that's a good thing. We don't want kids to be just suspended freely and out of school, not learning. We want the school system to deal with this. We want the community to know what's going on in the school. It's the community, the taxpayers, citizens sending their children to the school, paying for these schools. We want them to know. We want the school system to take action and stop suspending children. Let's deal with the problem that exists and fix the problem so our students can learn, can go to school and not suspended, because when they're suspended, they do not learn. So I see the issue you brought up from a different perspective, Senator. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Vice Chair. Then we'll come back to the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what Senator Ellis said, but I actually have a concern about a slippery slope or a downward spiral. I don't know what analogy to use in terms of real estate and housing sales and all that. So I like the bill, and I'm shocked that the House voted nearly unanimously, because on virtually every bill that comes through the House, there are like 35, 40 votes against it. So this is a consensus bill in the House, but we are not the House. My concern, I think, state level, yes. Local level, yes. System level, yes. What I wonder, and all that should be totally public, I wonder whether anyone else agrees with the concept of keeping a school level data confidential or more confidential. Because if there are bad numbers for this school in this neighborhood, it seems to me that those who don't have choices or who don't have access to the internet or don't know to look up a neighborhood before they move into a neighborhood are going to be cycling down into tougher schools. Whereas if it's internal, if it's shared internally, okay, we really have to work on the ABC school here because we've got a problem, but there's not the same level of disincentive for other folks to move into that neighborhood to make it an even better school. So that's just my one concern. I support the concept totally, and I'm all for transparency. I just wonder about down to the granular level of schools.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Senator Simon.
Yeah, just a couple comments. And I will say I appreciate the goal, and I'd like to get to that goal. But at the same point, we have celebrations in our community when we have a blue ribbon school or a green school. And we're going to have a designation that you're a high suspending school. Something school, you made that list. And it's going to put pressure on the schools not to suspend people. And you may say we shouldn't suspend people From what I've seen dealing with their school system, at least in my district, they are trying, and it comes down from the superintendent level, to reduce the number of suspensions so much that the teachers are challenged how to deal with children. I'm not an expert how you deal with children. I mean, I've got 7, but that's not a classroom full. And then the other, just a technical question. Say you have elementary school with 100 kids in it. If one student is suspended 10 times in a year, do they make it, or do you have to have 10 individual different children to make this 10%?
I don't know if that's clear in the bill. I mean, it's just a reporting.
Right, I understand, but you make the list, you get the high suspension award of the year. You know, our local newspaper puts in the, with the, these are bad schools, they made this list.
The language on page 4, and I'm going to, says 10% of its students in each subgroup. To me, by using the word students, it means students, not frequency.
Okay, so you could have.
But again, if the committee council.
No, that's what it says, suspends 10% or more of its students in each subgroup. It doesn't.
So you could have 100 suspensions, but 80% of those suspensions are 10 kids.
Then that would
And
not
that would
qualify.
not apply in this situation, even though they were issuing a lot of suspensions.
Yeah, that's the way
and
I
is
read
that
it.
the intent of what we're trying to get to? Or are we just trying to say
I
how
think
many?
it's, the frequency is they're trying to say is if that is the go-to discipline method, then you're going to have a high frequency of suspensions regardless of whether it's for lots of students versus, for example, one student who might have issues and frequently gets the same discipline. So I don't think if 5 students consistently for some reason end up with that particular discipline, then they would not fall into that category.
Right, and just my gut feeling is you probably have multiple suspensions on children. I mean, so you're not going to capture those necessarily under this legislation. What you're going to capture is if a school is widely suspending everybody. And again, I don't know if that's the intention of the bill. But, and then the other thing is the singling out of a school, I think will not be good in your community. Is there any way we could do it at a little higher level, like a school district, where it's 4 or 5 schools and you still get the data, but you're not singling out a specific school? Because, I mean, you think of it, different schools have different racial makeups and ethnicity and so forth. So your school, just based on your population, could be on this list a lot easier than some others.
Okay. Senator Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the Vice Chair and now Simon Ayer have a good point, and I was going to raise it as well. And I would like to have an amendment where we strike the school level, because I see those lists. I do see a negative impact, but I also see that by having at the state level disaggregate and the local school system level, having the race and ethnicity data and disability data, it will allow to see the disparate discipline rates. And so that then can allow some interventions of, okay, where are they coming from, those schools? I do have concerns about having it at the school level for the reasons that the Vice Chair mentioned, and how they're used. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to speak for a moment, and then I'll take your question.
I know you sometimes have a hard time catching lights and stuff.
I've heard that before. One reality in our state, and unfortunately the country, is that most schools are one-race schools. they're sadly either almost all African American or all white, and increasingly in some communities like Langley Park, all Latino. So I think there's less school-wide information that's going to show disparities, because I would bet 80% of the schools, if not more, are essentially one-race schools, 95% of one population. You know, I believe in integration. I think people can learn from different cultures and races. The fact is, there's not a lot of it in this country or the state. So I think some of our fears might be overblown. Secondly, already, you know, we passed the ESSA law. We had to pass a law for the federal government, and in Maryland they turn it into grades. I think it's A through E or A through D or whatever it is, which is already available publicly for people to look at schools before they buy a house. So, and there was a lot of debate on that it could dissuade people from moving into certain areas. So, I have no problem with school data. And secondly, Senator Ellis, I agree with you. We shouldn't be putting kids on the street. As a former teacher, I also know if a kid's gone around hitting other kids in my class, I can't teach. We have to do something. And I've always had this concept of having in-school something, I don't want to call it detention, where during the day, for a couple of days of cooling off, they get instruction and therapy, right, to try to find out why they're acting out, and some time for the teacher to get back control of the class. But that costs money, and a lot of school systems have not done that kind of model or creative models. So you don't send them on the street, but sometimes you have to continue instruction with the other 32 or 35 or 29 kids, because a kid can be a pain in the butt and really get in the way and hurt the other 28 kids. But I don't think there's been, either because of cost or the right model of solving that problem. So, Senator, it is a challenge, you know, and I think we should spend less, but I don't think we've been able to come up with the resource and plan to address it and turn those kids at jeopardy. Hopefully some of Kerwin will do that. But I have no problem with the school data. I think it's going to give us less money than we think. You know, in some ways, one of the other pieces of data is class. You know, so even in an all-race school, whether kids are wealthy or poor, whether they're all white or all black or all Latino, that might be another factor. But that gets very complicated in trying to figure that out. So that's my cheap 2 cents. Senator Gallion, while I can't see your light, I think you had a question.
Yes. So if that was an amendment, I was just looking at where that would, so that would be like on page 4 of the bill, like around line 8, that line would just be deleted, so it would just leave the school system, which would be, I'm assuming, like at the county level or this.
Reporting out on the website of the locals.
Weird.
Okay, so on page 3, line 33, where you have to report this on the website, you would strike school level there. And then under this shall include, so I'd have to look to make sure whether that public school would have to be taken out too. I just, how things work, just take a moment for me to.
And some of this kind of new for me. I was really blessed. I got to go to Havre Grace High School, where there was a diversity and everybody got along. We were all friends. So I hear talk about one school's like all one or that. So that's kind of foreign to me, honestly, because I didn't have that. Luckily, I was blessed to go to a school which had a nice diversity, and everybody was for the most part good to each other. So this was an amendment. I would be in support of that, taking it out at the single school level, because I too, kind of piggybacking on what the vice chair said earlier, if you're looking to move to an area, and you see this list of schools and you say, well, that one has this many more suspensions, and you'd be less likely to move to put your family in that area with the higher suspensions. So then you kind of want people moving in these different areas to broaden things out. So I think this would be a good amendment. I don't know if it was formally motioned by Senator Washington, but if it was, I'd like to second it.
It's on the table, and we're just going to trust. If it passes, the committee council will clear up the language in any place if it passes. Senator Riley and then Senator Washington. And
Thank you,
ladies and gentlemen, it's 3 of 2, so.
I'll be short.
3 of 12, I'm sorry.
I know how hard it is, but I'll be short. Thank you for laughing.
Some of our colleagues might not fit in that category, but.
I understand.
You
Well,
are not
the puns committee, I understand.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, isn't this available through the Longitudinal Data Center? This not necessarily student information, but where we can pull it out by school district, by system?
Not the public. You have to make a request through an entity. That's not free to be you and me, that any citizen can access it and slice and dice the material.
Thank you.
Senator Washington.
Again, just speaking to the amendment, I think that we are making a significant change by having state-level data, local data. I wouldn't be removing, the goal wouldn't be to remove any ability to analyze or have access to school-level data, so I still want them to produce the school-level data. I just don't want it on the website. Yeah, that's why I just want to make that clear. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's do a roll call. Washington, Kagan, Gallion amendment of removing local school for the public data.
Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Lamb?
Yes.
Senator Hester?
Aye.
Senator Ellis?
Yes.
Senator Gallion? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Senator Carosa?
Yes.
Senator Washington?
Yes.
Senator Riley?
Yes.
Senator Patterson?
Yes.
Senator Simonaire?
Yes.
And Senator Pensky? No. 10-1.
Okay, the amendments adopted 10-1. The bill before you is the bill as amended. Will anybody be voting against the bill? Okay, it'll go to the floor 11-0. Okay, folks, obviously we have to stop here. I think we're looking at 4:30 on Monday. That gives us 2.5 hours if we go in at 7. If I find out we're going in earlier or later, not going in, I'll make an announcement on the floor. We're going in now. They're calling us. Hopefully we'll take a short break afterwards, and then we'll have those hearings and get the hell out of town for the end of Passover, Easter, or whatever we're celebrating. Okay? That's what I'm thinking now. It depends when we're called in on Monday. I haven't spoken with the Senate President yet. So just listen on the floor, because we're going to try to decide something on the fly probably. So look, we didn't get through much, but we had some great debate. I appreciate it, committee. Thank you.